They don't want everybody prosperous. They don't want everybody safe and secure and out of fear. Hell no. How could they get away with their crimes? So just understand what I'm saying has great legitimacy. I know what I'm talking about. This chain reaction inflation tax. Understand, of course, it's logical. Yes, if the cost for this went up, well, the government's got to pay more for energy. And so if the government is you and I, well, that means you and I have to pay more for energy. What's it based on? Is there a disruption in the supply chain, which is the only legitimate cause to raise your cost of living tax? And that's on a temporary basis. There's not enough corn. There was a drought. Okay, so your price of corn goes up for that year temporarily until they get their bearings. Yes, you're paying a subsidy. So in that sense, yes, we can understand this subsidy idea, but it's on a temporary basis. That's it, until the problem is fixed. So once you fix homelessness and you don't ever allow it again, okay, do you understand what you've got there? Okay, you're going to see rents go down. You're going to see mortgages go down. And understand this, you're paying a great welfare subsidy to housing for the poor. $50 billion every single year. And not a single fiscal conservative out there, I listen to the Alex Jones show all the time. Nobody out there is pointing this out. If you took away that, let's get rid of it. I'm all for it. Okay, so next person tries to call me a socialist, okay, it just makes me nuts. Don't you ever. I do not prescribe to the Robin Hood theory. It doesn't work. Okay, over and over. It sounds good in principle, but it doesn't work. Okay, all it creates is animosity. The richest rich, always find attorneys to find loopholes for them, so they never end up paying. So it does not work. So I do not prescribe to socialism. I am a fiscal conservative. Okay, and I know what the hell I'm talking about here. Okay, so why don't you talk about Alex Jones? Why don't any of your reporters talk about it? Why don't any of your guests talk about it? Get rid of Section 8 housing now! $50 billion a year. Buy those people that can't afford to pay their housing costs. Buy them houses. You call me liberal? Yeah, I don't give a crap what you call me. I'm a fiscal conservative. I want lower taxes for you and him and her and me. Let's get it straight. Let's be honest. Be intellectually honest. I'm calling you out. You take that $50 billion a year, you put it in an escrow account, and you buy these poor people houses. If you say, well, we just can't do, who the hell are you? Who appointed you God of humanity, of society? What makes you so sanctimonious and self-righteous? Get it together, man. Be honest. But I'll tell you what you'd see a dramatic reduction in housing costs. And the whole idea of giving this welfare subsidy in the first place was to make housing affordable for the poor, those that couldn't afford their rents and mortgages, which they don't do. They never did agree to buy. How they set up these, what do they call it, the federal, I studied real estate for years, okay? I got a 4-year degree in real estate, a real estate license for 4 years, okay? I jumped through all the hoops to get this, but still, I forget some of these things. They had this program, the FHA, the Federal Housing Association or agency, right, that was supposed to help people buy houses. We all know that turned into a big fat scam, too, because these appraisals became based on nothingness. What are these appraisals being told? They're working for the banks. And you can say, yeah, well, the banks, they don't want to lose their butts. They got to protect their interests, so they want to make sure that what they're lending money on is based on, well, how big is your fireplace? Do you have vaulted ceilings? How big is the lot? What's the square footage of your house? How many bathrooms? How many bedrooms? So let's make an appraisal. What year was the house made? It used to be based on something that meant something. They said abandon that idea. Slick Willie got rid of a huge consumer protection regulation, the Glass-Steagall Act, green-lighting these banksters. That was a huge favor. Whatever happened to the Whitewater scandal with Slick Willie? It vanished all of a sudden. A huge favor to the banksters. They hated the Glass-Steagall Act because it was a leash. And so Bill Clinton, Slick Willie, let him off the leash, okay, and they really couldn't wreak a lot of havoc until baby Bush 43 came in and we had 9/11, and he just green-lighted the crap out of the investors. He said, look, the reason that these terrorists attacked us on 9/11 is because they hate capitalism. They hate our free Western ways. So invest. So he set the dogs loose out there. the wolves, the hounds, and they went wild west on the public's ass. And everybody saw the writing on the walls, and they got all these liar laws. They said, if I don't get in now and jump on this bandwagon of home ownership, I'm never going to be a homeowner. So we all know what happened. If we're just being intellectually honest, we don't need to be particularly intelligent. We don't need to be intellectual. Okay, we can understand this stuff. So we know the why and wherefore, why, the desperation of the public, what they did here. Why do we need this bandwagon effect? Does anybody ask? We don't. It's been invented. It's artificial. It's inorganic. Okay, that's it. That's what's going on here. You've got to get it. So what's the net effect of what happened? The housing prices stay high. We got the bailout of '08. Which was a direct effect of these banksters going wild west and recklessly dumping all this money on the housing market, abandoning any semblance of validity to these appraisals they do on real estate. The government going along with it, the mainstream media telling you how good it is that the equity in your house is going up, and not talking about really trying to educate the public about ill-gotten gain, and how that sounds very suspiciously close to this idea that they talk about in real estate of an unearned increment. Oh, well, you just got an unearned increment. Isn't that wonderful? And they never try to educate the public. Well, you know, if you sell your house and you want to move somewhere else, you're going to pay more. So at the end of the day, you're locked in. You're stuck between a rock and a hard spot, because this is not good for you in the long run. If you want to be free and not confined, have to just stay in one house and just use your borrow money and go buy new cars and crap with your unearned increment, your what do they call it, your principal in your house, your equity. Okay, if you want to use the equity in your house and just keep borrowing money and go out there, and you're set, but you got to stay in one place, because if you move, you're going to pay more. You're going to have your mortgage is going up. Your rents are going up, because there's a direct correlation between the cost of rent and the cost of mortgages. Because people, as we all know, they buy houses to rent out. You got your Airbnb. You got people that just want to run a boarding house. You got people that sublet. They say, well, I'm in control. I'm on the lease, and I'll just rent out rooms. So everybody's trying to weasel out of paying the price here, paying the piper for this fraud, which is all it is. So I'm just trying to convince you that I know what I'm talking about. When it comes to supply and demand, I know how to define progress. And I know what is antithetical to progress, and what's going on not only in California, all over the country slowly. I know there's other hot spots too, like Manhattan is a really hot spot. But just understand what the effects would be if you got rid of Section 8 housing. At $50 billion a year, you'd see housing costs plummet, because the landlords, there would be real competition, there'd be real capitalism, you'd have real free market, okay, and they would be cutting their rates. They say, look, I just need to keep my tenants. There's no more of this subsidy here. So all these poor people are, they're going to act like that. Well, we got to house them, so we got to lower our rent. But you see, it's good, because their dollars are worth more too. Because if you brought down the cost of housing and everybody's paying less for their cost of housing, okay, then everything else can go down. There'll be some relief, and people say, yeah, there's no reason. I don't need to. I'm getting rich here. Why am I socking it to my boss here? I could charge less for my goods and services, or the combination thereof. Why wouldn't I want to do that? So you would do that. Now, I try to hold myself back from losing it here and, really acting out with a rant, because, I really do get upset. I genuinely get upset. And God knows I'm really trying my best to tame my tongue, like in the book of James. We got Roseanne all over the news now, and I'm going to talk extensively about that in my current events talking points and whatnot here. But, I really want this idea, it's also talked about in, asking about, do fresh and bitter water come from the same stream? That's from Scripture. You can look it up. And this idea of taming the tongue. So where it starts is in our heart, in our mind. Those thoughts that we choose to harbor, we have to mull them over with God. We've got to always invite God in our heart. If you don't like a thought, you say, well, is that really who I am? Do I have to really have this animosity toward my enemies? And believe me, I struggle. I just watched a couple episodes of Forensic File. They're put two back to back. They come on here in the West Coast. It comes on at 12:30 in the morning. And, watch two of them. But actually, I recorded them on my VCR and watched them this morning. But the thing is, sometimes I'll stay up. That's kind of late, but sometimes I'm up that late. But the thing is, one of them is where a woman, she kills her husband. It's all about money. But the other episode was really this freaky pervert guy that molested and raped and murdered a 9-year-old little girl that had befriended him. No talk about the dad in this episode. So dad was out of the picture. This little girl was looking